All right, welcome back to the channel. My name is Big John. Today we're going to discuss a little bit. This is, and I'm not sure exactly how well this is going to work, doing it like this, but my cameraman is busy. So we kind of have him do it this way. But this is my get home bag. This is not a bug out bag. This is what I keep with me at all times. If I've got to walk to the house, this will get me to the house. I would not want to go into yon wilderness with it, but I could, you know. And so we're kind of going to go, and I'm trying to keep from bouncing the camera. We're going to try to go over the contents a little bit, reasoning behind it, that sort of thing. One thing to remember, we're not camping with this. This is to get us to the house. Pardon my French, it's going to suck. And it's going to suck big time. You are not going to be comfortable, you know, but it will get you home. And that's the whole point. So we're just going to open it up and start. This is a 511 bag. You can use any bag you want to. I like this one because it doesn't look quite as military, you know, not a huge issue, but it also, your backpacks, I don't know if your papa or your daddy ever told you this. Mine, both my granddads and my dad always told me, I don't care how big a shop you build, you'll fill it up. Ladies, I don't care how big a house you got, you'll fill it up. I don't care how big a backpack you got. If you ain't careful, you'll fill it up. And as the backpackers on the Appalachian Trail say, ounces equal pounds, pounds equal pain. So again, this is not to be comfortable. This should just get us to the house. So let's go and get into it. Now, we're going to remember the rule of threes. Okay? 30 seconds without oxygen, 30 minutes without shelter or proper clothing, 3 days without water, 30 days without food. So that's how our priorities are. Hopefully oxygen is not going to be an issue. If oxygen is an issue, this ain't going to help. You know, and even if, you know, I've got a couple tanks. I got one at the church, one here for medical emergencies, but that ain't going to get you very far. So our first thing we're looking, and this is going to be in no particular order, it's just how I'm going to get into it. So our outside pouch here, and I'm kind of embarrassed, this is the first thing I pull out, wipes. I have used Mountain Laurel. I have used oak leaves. I've used a shirt sleeve, a sock. It's a whole lot simpler to use these to keep. Also, not only just from a hygiene standpoint after you've had to defecate, but if you need to hit the hot spots, especially it's starting to become spring into summer and deepest, darkest Alabama, and you know, we'll be 97 degrees with 95% humidity. We might as well be the jungle as far as that goes. And to be able to wash your feet, get your pits and your unmentionables, you know, it'll help. I keep some packs of tuna fish. Protein. We got to have calories. If we ain't got calories, we ain't going very far. And imagine that, I've got an IFAK. So not only do I have my IFAK in my pocket, the one that's broken down, but I've got a full IFAK EMT shears. Again, you got an arterial bleed, you ain't getting very far. Camouflage face mask. Now this, and it just happens to be British surplus. I mean, GI surplus works just as good, but this is a canteen cup and stove. So I've got a plastic cup. I have got, this is an imperial quart. It's a little bigger than a U.S. quart of water. I've got a metal canteen cup that I can use to purify water and cook in, because this will go on fire. And then I've got a stove. And this is an upgrade from the old Tommy cooker. So your canteen cup nestles in like this. Your fuel goes here. If you don't want to build a fire and you've got fuel tabs, this works very well. Now, why do I carry this instead of a CamelBak? I do both at times. This is a lot easier to use for purification tablets, and it's a lot easier to fill out of like a creek or a pond. And then it's already set up. 2 purification tablets takes care of it. And then it all comes in a fancy well, they don't call it multicam. I think it's OCP. But anyway, little pouch. And this is a snug pack. This is a jungle blanket. Another thing you could use is a USGI poncho liner. But this happens to be a little bit water resistant, and it's a little thicker. This is going to take the place of my sleeping bag. Now, is it as good as a sleeping bag? Absolutely not. But it's a devil of a lot lighter, and it doesn't take up near as much space. So I've got it. This is my USGI poncho. This is my rain gear. It also acts as a shelter. So I can rig it as a shelter, like a lean-to or an A-frame, wrap up in my snug pack, or I can use this and do what's called a ranger roll and use it as a liner for my poncho and kind of a field expedient sleeping bag. And here, I'm not going to get it out. This is a Sawyer water filter. So I've got water purification tablets. I also have a Sawyer water filter. So I've got, counting fire, I've got 3 ways of purifying water. So if I need to, I'm covered there. This is a Mora knife. And it's the Garber, it's a full tang. And I like it because it is a full tang. People have a tendency to abuse their knives. I don't like that. I don't want to baton with it. If you're batoning with a knife, carry a cotton picking axe. So I've got the knife. These are Ranger bands. This is nothing but cut up bicycle inner tube. It's a good fire starter. It also works for like a big rubber band. Got a bunch of paracord. Got a ferrocenium rod. So I got another way to make fire. And I also carry a Bic lighter. I've also got flint and steel and some towel in there as well. So I try to, as much as possible, have some redundancy. If I've got redundancy for my purification, I've got redundancy for fire. And here I've got a pair of socks. I always wear wool. Like I said, I've got a pair of wool socks. I've got a head net. I have got a boonie hat. I got a shemagh. And I got a watch cap and then a mosquito net. So now this I can use. This is a shemagh. I can use this to protect my neck, protect my head. I can wet it. I can use this to filter water. I could use it as a field expedient sling. You know, you name it. It has multiple uses. I've got some smart wool socks. So in my car, I keep my boots that are broken in. That's very important. You don't want to break them in on your first trip to the house because you'll have blisters on top of blisters and you're going to be a casualty. But so I've got a pair of wool socks in my boots, and so I've got an extra pair of wool socks. I've got just an old boonie hat. Got a watch cap for cooler weather. And a pair of gloves. And these are waterproof bags. You can get them at Walmart. maps. Ideally, you shouldn't have to use these. You're getting to the house, you ought to know your route because you should have already worked your route. But, and we'll go over land navigation later, but you can get these from Topo USA. Used to, you could go to the U.S. Department of Agriculture and order them, called quadrangles. They're 1 to 25,000, so 1 inch on a map equals 25,000 inches on actual ground. There was an outfit in Tuscaloosa or Northport, Southeastern Mapping, I think. But of course, now everybody uses GPS and satellites. And I'm not against using GPS and satellites, but I've got this, and then I'll get out in a second, I've got a Suunto compass. So GPS goes down, my batteries take a dump, I've still got maps, so I can navigate to the house. Okay. I've got a headlamp, which is come unscrewed. Now, I would recommend this one has a lens filter. Get one that either has this, or when it comes on the first time, it comes on as red, because that will save your night vision. Now, I can use this as a white light, but ideally I want my filter up and use red, green, or blue. Any of them work real well for protecting your night vision. Red does not work as well if you're doing a blood trail, if you're looking up a deer, because it kind of washes the color of the blood out, red being red. Green doesn't work as well with your maps for the same reason. And since I'll probably be using maps more than I'm going to be looking up a deer, I got red. Now, some of them you actually choose. It'll give you the option of red, green, blue, or white light. But just make sure that you've either got a filter, or the first time it comes on in red, or one of the other night vision. You don't want to have an accidental discharge throwing white light out. I've got just some lens wipes for my glasses. I got tent stakes for staking out my poncho as a shelter. Now, I could whittle those, but those don't weigh anything. And if it's fixed to come up a cloud, I ain't got to sit down and whittle some out right quick. I can just use those. I've also got paracord in here for a ridgeline. This is my Suunto compass. Bic lighter, another way of starting fire. Leatherman Surge, which I carry a Leatherman in my pocket. But if need be, between the Leatherman in my pocket and this one, if I'm having to tighten something up, I've got one pair of pliers to hold the head of the bolt and one to hold the nut. Now, mechanics, please cut me some slack. I know I'm going to round either the head of the bolt off or the head of the nut off, because this ain't the right, it's not going to fit like a half-inch socket. But I'm already walking to the house if I'm doing this. So things ain't going the best of the world anyway, and I'll worry about rounding off a bolt head later. And I thank goodness I checked, because generally I keep a extra pair of eyeglasses in here, and I've took them out. But that would be the other thing I keep. Now, weight. Last time I weighed dry weight, so I'm not counting my water, I'm counting everything else, it was 26 pounds. Now, my backpack, without this, just with a tarp, emergency blanket, the bivy system, a GI sleep system with a bivy bag, and I don't use the jungle weight bag, I just use the heavier bag by itself. That's close to 40 pounds by itself. Now, when I ruck, most of the time, that's what I use is the bigger bag, because if I'm used to it, this is nothing. The only thing on this I'm not a big fan of is it doesn't have a waist belt. I wish it did. That takes a lot of the weight off your shoulders, puts it on your hips. It does have a sternum strap, but it's not uncomfortable, and it's not. I don't have it weighed down that bad anyway. Now, when you're setting your packs up, okay, you want your heaviest stuff at the top and closest to you. Don't put your heavy stuff, specifically like your water, don't put it back here, down at the bottom and away from your back, because that's actually pulling you backwards and be more uncomfortable. So your light, bulky stuff goes in the bottom, and then you pack your way up. If you want to use these waterproof bags, works real well. It also keeps stuff separated so you don't have to dig everything out to get what you need. If you want to use trash bags and Ziploc bags, nothing wrong with that. But waterproof it. Because if all this stuff gets wet, water is 7.1 pounds per gallon. And I know that this thing is supposed to be water resistant, but if that thing is probably a pound by itself, if that thing soaks up water, I'd be scared to know what that thing would weigh. And this could go from 25 pounds to 75 pounds. So what I do is I spray the outside with silicone. I spray silicone. Camp Dry is a form of it. And then, like I say, everything else goes in waterproof bags or Ziploc bags or something along those lines. And that keeps stuff dry. So I'm carrying the weight of this, not the weight of this, plus 50 gallons of water that it soaked up. Now, this is my compass. I prefer this over the Lensatic compass that the military uses. The military compass is actually a better compass. It's more accurate, and it's got the mills if you're correcting artillery fire. I don't think I'm going to be correcting artillery fire in the near future, so I'm not too worried about my mills. But it does have a screw back here from magnetic, if I could talk, declination. Now that's something we'll go over when we go over land navigation. I have a mirror. I can use the same mirror for signaling. I can also use it if I'm putting my camo war paint on, or I got something in my eye. I got me a mirror. Making sure my mascara didn't run. Got a magnifying glass if I need to look at something on a map. Also, fire starter. Sun's out, you use magnifier if you've got good tinder. It's got the scale on the sides. It has, and I don't know that I would ever need this, but you've got an arrow, this black arrow right here. If you're looking at the angle of elevation of a hill, is it a 30-degree hill or whatever, you can use this. And that's pretty much it. But Sun told me this is an MC-2, and make sure you get the 0 to 360. Don't get the 90-degree quadrants. That just makes life more difficult for you. But the MC-2, Suunto in Finland. Now, this is one thing I would recommend. Come off your hip pocket just a little. I mean, it's not outrageous. I think I gave $60 for it. My old one was a Suunto that I'd had since forestry school in 1987. But DEET mosquito repellent had completely eat it up. I mean, it got to the point I couldn't use it anymore. But it lasted almost 40 years. So I intend this to last me the rest of my life. So spend $50, $60, get you a good compass. Same thing on your knife. The Garberg, which I set down somewhere. Oh, over here. Mora makes a real good knife, and they're actually inexpensive. You can get one for like $15. It's got excellent steel. It's high carbon steel. I prefer high carbon steel because, and I don't know if I'll be able to do this on camera, but you use the back of your spine. You want a 90-degree spine. Let's see. And I about set my laptop on fire. Yeah, I can get where you can see it. Okay. I can use the back of my spine with a high carbon to use my ferro rod. So again, I'm trying to have one thing that does multiple things. And like I say, it's got a full tang, so it's a little heavier, a little stronger. I want to say I gave $70 for this. Don't quote me on that, but it's got real good steel. It's easy to sharpen. and it holds an edge very well. And then the grip, I don't know what this grip is. It's some kind of plastic, rubberish stuff, but there's nothing wrong with it. It's slip resistant. You know, you got a hole if you want to run a lanyard, you know, that sort of thing. So spend a little bit. Now, I'll be honest, I carried an old hickory butcher knife, and I still like it. With an 8-inch blade, I carried it for years. You know, this is a little nicer, but I would be scared to carry the old hickory if the steel is still as good as it used to be. Now, I don't know if that's the case because nothing is as good as it used to be, doesn't seem like. But get you a good ferro rod and a decent knife. Get you a good compass. Everything else, you know, you can kind of cheat a little bit on, you know, except your socks. Make darn sure you get good socks. So, and then make sure you keep your weight down. Now, a good rule of thumb is with for a ruck, for your rucksack, your backpack, or if you want to be British, your Bergen, maximum 25% of your body weight. 20% would actually be better. So if you're 200 pounds, oh Lord, now I got to do math. I'm going to embarrass myself. Was that 40 pounds? Yeah, 200 pounds is 40 pounds. That's your maximum. You know, Pastor Joe Fox has a list that he did with some consulting on a group. And so you had your EDC, which was a handgun, spare mag, a lighter, and a knife. And then if I was just carrying one knife, probably I would carry a Leatherman, you know, because I've got screwdrivers, I've got scissors, I've got an awl if I need to sew, I've got a saw, I got pliers, you know. So if I'm just carrying one, most of the time I'm just carrying a Leatherman. Then he had what was called your 24-hour bag. If you had to hit the ground running, so you had your EDC, you had your carbine or your rifle, 90 rounds of ammunition, either on stripper clips or mags. So it'd be basically 3 mags. You would have clothing that would be suitable for the next 24 hours, and a quart of water. What else was there? That may have been it. I'd have to go back and look to be sure. But you couldn't add anything to that till you could do 20 burpees with your EDC and your second line gear or your first line gear. EDC would be first line, this would be your second line. Then on your ruck, you had another 90 rounds in mags or stripper clips, 3 MREs. Then you could carry a larger knife. You had to have a shelter, a few other odds and ends. But you couldn't add anything to it until you had everything, including your carbine or your rifle, and could cover 4 miles in an hour. Because what happens is we have a tendency, well, I might need this or I might need that. So you start adding all this stuff in, and next thing you know, you're weighted down like a rented mule, and you can't get to the mailbox and back. You know, a good story, I guess, for lack of a better term, or account, was Private Sam Watkins, who was with the 1st Tennessee Confederate Infantry. He wrote a book, basically his memoirs, called Company H. Excellent book. If you're looking for something to read, I can't recommend it enough, even if he was a Methodist. But he was in every major battle that the Army of the Tennessee was in from the start of the war to the end. And he was talking about their first battle they were in. They were roughly, this is actually, I believe, before the state of Tennessee had actually seceded. And they were in what's now West Virginia, around Winchester, Virginia, around Romney, West Virginia, which is just down the road from Winchester, where max velocity is. And I was telling you about everything being uphill. Well, they were doing a forced march up this hill. And so as they got to looking, they looked, and there was a pair of boots, and there was a blanket, and there was a skillet. You know, all this stuff these fellas thought they had to have. There was a Bowie knife, you know, had a blade about 16 inches long, weighed 5 pounds or whatever. He said when we got to the top of the hill, we had one blanket, we had a cartridge box, and a rifle. And that's all we had. Or a canteen, which we had dumped everything else. All of a sudden we realized we didn't need none of that stuff. And it's the same kind of thing. This is why I highly recommend You don't just pack your bag. Pack your bag and get on the road. Get you a good 3 to 5 miles. You ain't got to do it all at one time. Do 30 minutes, rest for 5. 30 minutes, rest for 5. But you learn your hot spots on your pack. How does it ride? How does it fit? How did you pack it? If you got something kicking into your kidneys every time you take a step. And then you also learn, especially if you do an overnighter, I think I could do without that. I don't need to carry that cast iron Dutch oven. I can cook what little bit I'm gonna eat. Well, can't do this one because this is the plastic one. But my metal canteen cup will suffice. I'll put me a little bit of water in there, a little bit of beef jerky, a little bit of hardtack, and cook it till it thickens. And I ain't gonna get fat, but I'll make rock hominy, that type thing in there, pemmican, your survival rations. But you got to get out and use it. Ask me how I know, because I was like Sam Watkins. First time we went backpacking, I had everything but the kitchen sink. And I learned right there gun quick, A, I didn't carry enough water, and B, I didn't need 90% of the crap I had in there, And so you learn to make do with what you got. Well, I went bad long on this one. But this is something we used to do all the time, and I'm trying to get my daughter into it, and I'm going to do more of it, is getting back and spending more time like in Sipsey Wilderness area up at Bankhead National Forest, and running with the packs, that sort of thing. Because, like I say, you'll learn stuff there that you ain't going to learn nowhere else. So, I appreciate it. Again, comments, questions, criticisms, witticisms. If you got any questions, to holler at me. I can help you. You want to go backpacking, holler at me. I'll go with you. I ain't going to carry your crap, and you ain't going to carry mine, but I'll still go with you. So, all right. Y'all need anything, holler. I appreciate it. Have a good day. Thank you very much.